technology, you've only seen the tip of the iceberg. I mean, there's a lot more that can be done with the technology. And so this project is going into looking a little bit more about it. So I'm going to show you some drawings from the project, and the project also has 2 films in it as well. So I'm going to start with the first film now. It's called Domestic Robocall.
Dolor de cabeza. Con alta información. Wow. Too much information. Too much information. No. Solo tienes que pensar.
Carefully pour boiling water into the mug. You're given credit. While you're waiting for the tea to brew, why not browse some recipe suggestions to help you decide on the tea that will satisfy your
So that's still number 1. On YouTube, and it provoked quite a mixed reaction. Some people were really excited about the possibilities of the technology, but some people were kind of horrified by the potential implications of the effect on privacy, etc. But I think it's understandable, because the home is this deeply private and personal space, and which also makes it a very kind of sensitive and alluring place for the invasion of media. This is another image I produced for the project, but I didn't end up making this into a film. The next film of the project was less cynical, but more propositional. I was trying to be a little bit more positive about it, and trying to understand what kind of opportunities we could get from it. So, can you put on the next film? Can you put on the next film, please? This film's actually made in 3D, and I don't have enough glasses for everybody, so if you can watch it at home and you have some 3D glasses, please go ahead.
No me imagino el futuro, ¿no? pones para pensar así, güey. No latino, puro porno. Tú cambias de tema, ¿no? No sé qué está haciendo, déjenme.
Okay, yes. So it's not my intention today to explain these films to you. I think you can get it by yourself. But really, I want to kind of walk you through the design process of these films. So it's not coming out. Okay, so it's not my intention today to explain films to you. I think you can make your own conclusions about these films. What I really want to do is walk you through the design process when I was making these films and all the kind of decisions that I had to make along the way. This is from the first film. This is actually my kitchen in London. You see these kind of black marks on the surfaces there. I actually had to get up, and those are physically there. I had to get up on a chair and put all those on, much to the shock of my housemates. But this was so that I could track the video using a kind of algorithmic software, so that I could put the special effects in, which is something that we do in Hollywood a lot. But what I found really interesting about this is that what we're doing is this kind of technology has to be done with augmented reality as well. That an augmented reality interface would have to be able to have an understanding of the environment. So there are these you see these markers up here, the QR code and the magic symbol. They're used to kind of communicate. And these are, okay. So these are used quite a lot now. This is in Japan, this is a billboard. The thing I found interesting about this was that the environment is no longer speaking directly to us, but it's speaking through an interface. And when that happens, something interesting occurs, that the way we experience space is through a personal device. And that means that it can be different for every single person. So we have this idea of subjective space, space that we can be in the same space at the same time, but the way we use that space might be quite different. Yeah, and we can already see this happening today. If people are using cafes as a workplace, or playing some games console on the bus, there's a famous architect called Mies van der Rohe, and he's very famous for this expression, this maxim that goes form follows function. So the idea that we should design form based on the function. But this is now becoming unstuck because we're going into a space and deciding what function we want to put into it, and we're able to do that through technology. So the first and most obvious problem I had with the project was the problem of interface. How do we interact with our environment? How do we modulate the environment? And I think some of you might remember from the first film there was this kind of keyboard floating in the air. And the more I thought about that, the more kind of ridiculous idea this is, that we have access to this amazing technology, and yet we're still using a kind of essentially a typewriter to interpret the space. So with the second film, I decided to use the cockpit as an analogy. I think this is quite interesting because this is a spatial mapping of an interface. So you can start to associate a function with a point around you. So this is how it kind of manifests itself in the film. And you can imagine that each one of these kind of interfaces would be customized, and people would be able to lay out their own spaces depending on what tasks they wanted to develop. This is another way we could use augmented reality to interact better with data. This is a kind of social networking module. So you can see there's a kind of dome with lots of all your friends up there, and we're mapping the messages against time in Z space. So what happens here is that you can also group your friends in different parts of the room. So maybe I have my kind of co-workers over here, but I have my school friends over here, my university friends over here. And we can start to use our spatial intelligence to better understand data. This is the channel browser. I'm going to talk about the function of the channel browser in a little bit, but the actual form of it itself, I wanted to do something that was, again, using space to make a better interface. And this one, is just an idea, but the idea here is that whenever you make a decision, the menu structure changes shape. So you can start to read the shape of the interface and see that as a decision that you have to make. So after a while, you might not have to read what it's asking you. You can recognize the shape and interact accordingly. Now, augmented reality has some of the similar problems to virtual reality when looking from a standpoint of spatial design. You can be in any space really. You can choose wherever you want to be, and you're not restricted to your kind of physical surroundings. So the question of ideal space comes up. What is ideal space? If you could be anywhere, where would you want to be? To a lot of people, something like this would be considered to be an ideal space, in nature, but fully serviced as well. But some people prefer, the kind of modernist villa or the 18th century chateau. People have lots of different ideas about what ideal space is. But in terms of augmented reality or virtual reality, these all kind of seem quite dishonest. That what we're doing is replicating something from the past, which isn't that interesting to me. I want to move on and make something new. So what I decided that ideal space is this on the left here. Yeah. This is somebody's workstation, the desk that they've customized, and they've brought all of these things that have value to them into the space. So like some posters from their travels, their favorite books, they have everything they want or that they relate to around them. So it's really heavily kind of personal and subjective environment. And I like to see this as a kind of aggregator. So you have aggregators on the internet. You can bring content from all over the world, all over the place, and bring it together to make a unique environment. And that's how that came out in the film. This kind of it's a very personal environment where you have your library that hides you here and all those things around you. And of course, the space is portable as well. So the augmented city is like the internet in a way that you can't eat the whole thing at once. You can't see the whole thing at once. So you have to have some method to be able to choose what you see. In the web, we use hyperlinks to follow a path through that. But what we can do, interestingly, in the city is to combine lots of different layers together. So if you imagine we have, layer 1 is the physical world, but we have many, many virtual layers on top of that, which are partial realities that we can start to combine, bring together to form a space which is completely unique to us. So going back to the channel browser, this is allowing you to choose which layers of the city you want to see. So you can see, if you're from China, you can see the Chinatown layer, or if you're like a graffiti artist, you can see the graffiti artist layer, or if you're more of a technical Luddite, you can see the kind of pre-technical Georgian architecture, something like that. This is another drawing that I made during that time. I want to draw your attention now to this image on the left, which is the biggest screen in the world at the Dallas Cowboys football stadium in the US. What's interesting about this is that the inaugural game of this screen, they projected the game live in 3D. So everybody was sitting in the audience with their 3D glasses on and watching the screen while the game was going on below. Initially I thought that was ridiculous. Like, that's crazy. You're going to see the live game, you should be looking at the live players. But actually, I think I was really missing the point of that, because the reason people go to see a football game is not so that they can see some tiny, people running around on the pitch. It's really to do with being in the crowd and the sense of event and the sense of occasion, having a shared experience. So I think we can learn a lot from events when we apply those to the augmented city.